morning.
Morning, Razor.
Firstly, can we get your reaction to the League Cup draw? You've got Leicester on Boxing Day and you play them again a few weeks later at home in the quarter-finals.
Yeah, I think I asked for a home draw, so we got that, and really pleased to be at home. Tough game, I think. Whoever you get at this stage of the competition, you know it's going to be an elite game, so we're looking forward to it.
How are the players physically after the Bournemouth match the other night?
Yeah, in the main, I think we're pretty good. Trained yesterday. I'm just trying to think back. Yeah, a good training session. That the players seem in good spirits and looking forward now to returning to the Premier League.
Can you give us an update on Alexander Isak? It's about 3 months, I think, since we saw him. I know you've spoken regularly over the last couple of weeks about him, but how close is he to being available?
Yeah, he's doing well. We're pleased with him. Is he going to make the next couple of Premier League games at this moment in time? I'm not sure. Probably not. But he's going in the right direction, and we hope in the busy January period that we've got coming up, he can play a big part in that.
Before I ask you about Leicester, I want to talk to you about another player, because there was a lot of praise for Sven Botman after the cup tie the other night. Now, he was in the Dutch provisional squad ahead of the World Cup, but didn't make it to the tournament. How has he responded to any disappointment that he would have felt at not going to Qatar?
I think you can see by how he played the other day, his response has been very good. I know there was initial disappointment, naturally, for him when he wasn't included in that squad. I think, like most players, when you're close and you're feeling close to it, it's sort of taken away from you. There's that initial period where I think you have to deal with it and deal with the emotions around it. But I thought he was really mature. You think back to the Chelsea game, his performance was very good. You wouldn't have known there was any other thing on his mind other than Newcastle, and he's come back and put in a great performance against Bournemouth. So I think his career's in a really good place, and I think my message to him would be just concentrate on what you can control, and that's performing well for us, and the rest will take care of itself.
He was clearly a very good player, very good young player when you signed him, but you've had a chance to work with him now for 5 or 6 months. Is he continuing to improve and develop at the rate that you would like?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's areas of his game he still needs to work on. Naturally, I think when you're his age and coming to a new league, I think the Premier League always tests you in different ways to other leagues. I think he's responded to that, and I think the thing that pleased me the most, I think I said this after the game, against Bournemouth, you had Kiefer Moore, who's a very good target man, very good aerially, but I thought he stood up to that test really well. I'm not sure how much he would have been used to playing against that kind of striker, but I think that was a really good night for him. But I think all areas of his game are in a good place, and we'll continue to work on him and all the bits we feel he needs work on. Leicester
away on Boxing Day then. What will Christmas Day look like for you and the players?
I won't go too much into detail about my Christmas. For the players, I think we're going to report later. So they'll have the morning with their families, and then we'll train and then leave.
The fixture schedule at this time of year, you'll be well used to it by now. What are your views on it generally? It's maybe not as busy as it's been in previous years, perhaps because of the break, but you've still got 3 or 4 games over the next week and a half. I think as a player, I loved it. I loved the festive games. I loved the atmosphere. They always had different feeling about them than the normal programme. As a manager, I think your focus is different. You're not experiencing necessarily those emotions. You're feeling the preparation, the short turnaround. You're worried about fatigue with your group. So, but I have no issue with it. I think it is part of what makes the Premier League and English football special. My only thought would be that we don't want games too close together where the players can't then execute their best performances in the next game. And lastly, on Leicester, they didn't start the season well, but they put together quite a good run of victories before the World Cup break. What do you make of the team that you'll be playing on Boxing Day and the challenges that they'll give you? Well,
I think they're a top team with a top manager, and that never changed, in my opinion, even though they had a difficult start to the season. The quality of Brendan's work, I think, always shines through in his teams. And if you look at their players, not a dramatic amount has changed from the team that excelled in previous years. So I think we respect them immensely. I think they're a very good football team. And I think now the confidence has returned. I think they're a very dangerous opponent for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rosa. Keith?
Morning, Eddie. I think a lot of clubs in the past, a lot of people in the past have used Leicester as a
a barometer of where they'd like to be in terms of the infrastructure at the club, the training ground, the players. Obviously they've won silverware recently. Where would you see Newcastle right now in comparison to Leicester and what they've done in recent years?
Very difficult comparison to make, I think, for us. I could sit here and talk to you at length about different clubs, but I don't think there's any point. I think we're on our own journey, which is quite unique. I think their story is an inspirational one. I think, taking apart comparisons, just the fact that they won the league when no one expected them to, and they won it with I think a really, really good team spirit, and obviously an outstanding team. You look back at that team, and there's key components of it that are very memorable. So, a full credit to them. They've invested in their infrastructure, which I think you have to now in modern football. You have to build that to attract the calibre of players that you want to. So I think they've done a very good job. But as I said, we're on our own journey, and we'll hopefully get there in our time.
You were chatting about Alex Isak there, and obviously we've not seen him for a couple of months. How difficult has that been for a young player moving to a new country in a big transfer? How testing a period has it been for him to deal with?
I'd say very difficult, without being in his head and in his shoes. But just, I've had a feeling of that going to a new club, and I moved to Portsmouth and never played really 2 games. I had a lot of emotions running through me, feelings of guilt and letting people down, and not being able to, my body not allowing me to execute what I wanted it to. Now, mine was a really serious injury, so Alex will no doubt feel those same emotions in some degree, whether as powerfully as mine were. So I sort of know that feeling. You want to go and you want to prove yourself to your new club, your new supporters, and he just hasn't been able to do that due to the couple of injuries that he's picked up. There can also be benefits to it though as well. I think sometimes when you're away from the spotlight, you can get to know the club, your teammates, and you can begin to feel at home. So then when you do step back on the pitch, you're more comfortable in your surroundings. So I think we have to look at the positive and hope he comes back and makes a real impact for us.
And is there a positive for him, the fact that when he did sign, he obviously burst onto the scene, scored that goal at Anfield, then I think he scored another one at St James's Park from the spot as well. Is it good that he's got that to hang on to, that kind of gives him something to look at and think, I can get back to that again?
Well, I think yes. I think there was huge positives. He scored at home. He scored scored away, and I thought he performed brilliantly at Anfield. So I think there's a very good feeling around him, and I think there's just a frustration that from the supporters' side that they haven't seen more of him, because I think they know he's an outstanding talent. So I think it's all positive for him. We're just looking forward to getting him back.
Just over a week until the transfer window opens, what do you hope, what do you expect the transfer window to look like for Newcastle United? Because that is the question, I suppose, on every supporter's lips at the moment.
I don't really know, Keith, to be honest. I think it's we're in a very different position to where we were last year, where we knew we needed to act and we knew we needed some good numbers through the door to try and lift the group, really. Now we're in a different position. We're in a different position also with financial fair play than we were last year, where we didn't have a legacy of transfer fees, so we had a gap there that we could attack, but we're in a different position now. So, not evading your question, but we're unsure what we want the window to look like, because we're not sure what's going to happen. And
you've got a good team spirit. You've got what looks like an amazing morale as well. So I guess is that playing in your mind that you wouldn't want to interrupt that too much as well?
I think I've said before, it's a very you've got to be very careful in my position that you don't do something that unsettles the group. You've also got to be mindful of the fact you don't want a group that's stale. So getting that balance right is crucial. I'll try and make those decisions. But as I said before, we are, and as I said it in the summer, financial fair play does play a part in this.
Morning, Eddie. Just slightly away from football to kick things off. Over the last few days, it's been announced that Newcastle were donating serious money towards Newcastle West End Food Bank. I just wondered what you thought those gestures said about the club and what it stands for at the moment.
Well, I think the club's trying to do lots of initiatives in the community, and I think helping people, the vulnerable, is an amazing thing for the club to do. But I do think it's part of Newcastle's DNA, and I think it has to be going forward. Then we've got to use our power in the community to help surrounding areas as I say, people, organisations, charities. The players have done their bit, and will continue to do their bit, which we feel and the players feel is very important. We want to be that club that can make a difference to people.
And returning to the football, World Cup's obviously finished now. As a student of the game like yourself, what have you, if anything, have learned from a World Cup that you can perhaps apply here at Newcastle United?
Well, I think you're always looking for trends. Football changes so quickly. So what you coach and what you deliver maybe 2-3 years ago suddenly is outdated. So you have to stay on top of it. So I was watching the World Cup from a tactical viewpoint. With that tactical view, then you lose sometimes the enjoyment of the game, which is a difficult one for me because I just used to love football for what it was, not actually going underneath it. So, but no, I continue to do that, and no, there's some interesting things to come from it.
I know a lot of people have talked about the World Cup break causing a break in momentum almost in the season. But given Newcastle had 5 straight league wins, what about the mental momentum that's carried over from that form pre-World Cup?
Yeah, I think the key thing for us is the rhythm. I think that's the momentum for me comes from rhythm and the rhythm of the team. I don't think our rhythm was quite there against Bournemouth, as I said afterwards. We want to try and get that rhythm back as quickly as we can. We're now going into another phase of training, really, where we try and build all the relationships back into the team. So I think with the rhythm of the team comes the confidence that you talk about.
And Jonjo Shelvey, it's good to see him, getting back fully fit once again. I just wondered, how big a part do you think he can play and how vital he can be in the remaining 6 months of the season?
Jonjo is a key component of our squad. I think he's got that experience, but he's also got a fierce drive and determination to play. And he's got unique skills that we need in the team. So delighted to get him back.
And just on Leicester, obviously not the easiest fixture on Boxing Day. I mean, there's no easy fixtures in the Premier League. What would be your key message to the players ahead of this first Premier League game in, almost 2 months now?
Well, I think we've got to find our attacking intent. I think what we did so well in the first part of the season is we didn't go into any game with any backward steps. It was all forward steps and tried to be very positive. That's not a given. That doesn't just happen. I think you have to go onto the pitch feeling good about yourself, feeling confident to execute that. So I think that's the key component we need.
And just finally, apart from daft questions like this, what's the one Newcastle United related thing you'd asked for Christmas ahead of the final 6 months of the season?
I certainly haven't asked for anything, but my quest for points will remain undiminished.
Top man, thanks.
Thank you.
Misha?
Hi Eddie.
Hi.
Alan Saint-Maximin made quite a big impact when he came on in the week against Bournemouth. How big a role do you see him playing in this busy period?
Ooh, huge. Maxi's a massive player for us. Again, you talking about Jonjo there and his unique things that he has in his game that we want. Maxi's very much the same. I think you saw as soon as he entered the pitch against Bournemouth, he's got that ability to put his opponent on the back foot. For me, he's the best dribbler in the Premier League, and you need that in your team. Now, the challenge for Maxi is we're just building him fitness-wise back to his best levels. I think being the player that he is, he needs to be able to sprint and be able to sprint repeatedly at high levels. But I feel he's going in the right direction, and he's a key player for us.
When he was injured, you spoke about how professional he'd been with his recovery, and I guess there's the mental side of that too. Have you seen different things in him over that kind of difficult period for him, coming back from injury and then going from starting to being on the bench?
Well, I think naturally players, they're all different. I think Maxi he's been very good in terms of his training and what he's given to his training. Like any player, I feel there's so much more to come from Maxi. We're trying to work with him in certain areas of his game to try and take him to that next level. But he's got undoubted ability and quality that we're going to need in the second half of the season.
And now as you turn your attentions back to the league, you can't avoid looking at that league table and seeing where Newcastle sit. Are you using that kind of top four as a target for your players now, because you're there right now?
You say that. I haven't actually looked at the league table once. Genuinely, I haven't. And that's not to say that I'm not aware of where we are, but it's, for me, the focus is always on the next training session to make sure we give the players the best chance to play well in the next game. And let everything else fall into place.
Thank you.
No problem.
Simon?
Hi, Eddie. Just
Hi.
coming back from the break, it's been touched on. Some teams like yourselves will have designed the break to just try and carry on as before. Some teams will have looked to reset. But just sort of league-wide, do you think that it could actually prove to be quite a wrinkle in the season, the break?
Yeah, I think teams will use it for different things. I think there's certain teams that will use it for, as you say, a total reset, and maybe look to implement different things and come back a slightly different team. I think for us, I didn't think we needed to do that, but I did feel we needed to come back with our key principles in place. So it's a case of reaffirming that, and also identifying areas we needed to improve, and then going and working on that. And that's probably the two things we've done. We've worked on our strengths, and we've definitely worked on a few weaknesses we feel we need to improve.
Okay, written guys, we'll take questions now for today's embargo, and then we'll have an embargoed section for 5 p.m. Christmas Day. Danny?
Please. Eddie, a year ago you were sitting in the bottom three and fighting for your lives. How do you reflect on the last 12 months and could it have done any better?
I tend not to reflect too much, Damien, to be honest, because I think it's maybe something you do at the end of the season when you're bringing your ideas together for what the next season will look like. At the moment, it feels like we sort of had an end of season because we've had a break, but no, we're still very much now in in full flow. So I think maybe at the end of the season it'd be a time to look back. It has gone, no denying it, amazingly well, and we've enjoyed what we've done to this point, but it feels like we're only halfway through.
Craig?
Just a quick one on Alex, Eddie. Where is he? And he's come back in terms of, is he out running? Is he kicking a ball? Is he in the gym? Is he joining in? Where is he?
No, he's out running, and he's kicking a ball. But as I said many times, that this is, when you re-injure a part of your body, as he did, we have to be careful. And we're listening to the medical team to try and get that this next part right, because this is the most important bit. He's nearly there. We just have to make sure when he steps onto the pitch that he's fully ready. I don't want a half-ready player. He has to be ready to execute what we need.
And as part of that, as you said, because of what happened previously, you're not pushing in the fact that Wilson and Wood are fit. Is it caution? Is that the reason what perhaps?
I wouldn't say it's caution. I think we'd be doing the same with any player in his position. He had a re-injury, so I don't think it's cautious. I think it's just the right thing to do for him.
Okay. Luke?
How different do you anticipate this sort of, I'm going to call it the second half of the season, we're not quite there, compared to the first, given where you are in the league and the fact that the rest of the league's had a good look at you now?
Difficult one to predict. Yeah, teams like we do, you prepare for your opposition, you prepare for the game. Certainly, I think the second time you play a team is maybe different. You've learnt things from the first game. I'd like to think we're prepared for what's ahead, depending what is coming at us. I feel the players would be ready to play different ways if we needed to. No, I'm not necessarily talking system-wise. I'm talking principles of play. I think you have to be adaptable. We have to be ready. I think the players will be.
Has the start to the season changed anything internally in terms of you've always carefully not given us what your ambition for the season was, which is quite skilled of you. But has that changed internally? Is it because of where you are on the table now?
No, not really, because I think at the start of the season, you never know how it's going to go, but you want and you dream big for your team. I always do every season. There's that part of your brain that's thinking, what if we can do this? And we're sort of in that moment now where it's in our hands in terms of where we go. But as I always say, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but you go then back to the processes of how you get your team to play well, and it's all about the day-to-day aspect. And you just hope you can keep churning out positive results and then see where it takes you.
Just one on transfers. There's a bit of, well, maybe two. There's a bit of emotional sort of scar tissue from January transfer windows from the previous regime, where the club went into them not looking to do anything, pretending it was looking to do anything. Is it fair to say that you will still be active? You will be keeping a very, very close eye on the market and who's available, and if the right deal's there, it's a long question, isn't it? Will you do it?
I've forgotten the first part, but I think let me say this: when I watch players, which I am currently doing in amongst the lots of different things and aspects of the job, I'm not pretending to watch them. I am actually watching them with a view to signing them. So I'm not acting when I'm doing that alone at home.
If the right deal's there, will you do it?
That's the I can't get. I'd like to think I'm an honest guy, Luke. I don't know. We're in that a slightly difficult position where, as I said earlier, to improve our team, as in our starting 11, I think is very difficult. Without spending vast amounts of money, which we don't have. Improving the squad is maybe a different thing. But then do we want to improve the squad or do we want to improve the team? So there's lots of different things. And what is the financial availability to us? That is slightly grey because of financial fair play. So, and then you have injuries to add in. So if we get injuries, that might change things again. So I'm being vague, but I'm only speaking the truth.
I did try. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Ian?
It's a similar question to Luke's short question. I think most people say Newcastle did better than they expected in the first half of the season. You've now got a target on your back, and teams have seen what you are. Will the second half of the season be tougher because you're there to be shot at?
Yeah, I think it's healthy for us to think it will be tougher. I'm pretty sure it will be. As you say, teams have had a look at us, they've seen us. But I think there's advantages to that from our side because I think we are confident. Players have had very good seasons to this point, so there's a confidence and a style about our play which I think I've really enjoyed watching it. So I think there's positives to be had, but I do believe potentially it'll be tougher, and I think that's healthier for the players to think that way anyway. But we're ready for that challenge, and we'll try and embrace it.
And you look at Leicester, who made a pretty disastrous start, but as you said yourself, they're clearly a good team. Do you think they could be a team who could be right up there with you?
Well, I think before the season, I certainly thought they would be. I think it's credit to the manager and to the players how they've responded to that difficult start, because it's very easy to not have the strength to regain their footing as they have done. I've got no doubt that they could be one of those teams that has a late charge.
Thanks. Okay, Miles?
You said the squad's in a good place. Aside from Isak, is there anyone who won't be involved on Boxing Day?
Emil Kraft and Paul Dummett, I don't think will be quite there, although he's improving.
Okay. Jordan?
Andy mentioned daft questions before. This might be a daft one as well. But on Saint-Maximin said after the game on Tuesday, he hopes Newcastle have a chance of signing Marcus Thuram. I just wondered if he was a player that was potentially under consideration.
Well done, Maxi. Yeah, he's a top player, but no more than that.
Not one of the players you looked at.
Well, he's one that I watched in the World Cup for sure, but no more than that.
Just added the confusion. It got translated into another language that it was your quote.
Oh, really?
Saying that you wanted them, yeah.
Right. Well, I can't speak any other language, so I don't know. Certainly not from me.
Yeah.
Louise?
Jesse Marsh was saying yesterday that he thinks there's a danger with players that have been at the World Cup, that they could burn out mentally as much as physically, and in some ways it's easier to manage the physical load. Is there anything specific that you're sort of doing to address that? I mean, might you be going away again to Saudi or Dubai or southern Spain or wherever?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. The mental stress that the players go through, especially representing their country, I think is very high. I think I'll always speak to the players and try and get their feelings on it, because I think the majority of those players are experienced enough to know how they feel. And when they came back, I had a good chat with all of them, and all of them wanted to come straight back into play here. I think that was a great thing for me, as I said before. Certainly during the season, especially as the games come thick and fast, there might be a time where we need to individually give them a break at some point, and obviously I wouldn't do that en masse and everyone the same time, but might look to try and give those individuals a break at some point.
Like some of the top teams send players individually on holiday for a week or so, and I suppose that's quite a difficult balancing act to think of who can you afford to be without in a game.
Yeah, and that's very difficult, I think, in our position as we sit here currently to do that. But certainly I agree with individuals, there may be a chance that we can be selective about certain moments where they can get a few days away.
Okay, Kieran?
You signed Bruno last January, of course. Do you foresee a player like that suddenly becoming available in January? Does that kind of feel a bit of a one-off?
I think I've said before, we'd love another transfer like that, because I thought it was transformational for the team and for the group. They're difficult players to find, but that's our job to try and find them, and we'll endeavour to do that.
Alexander Isak, is he someone who can play wide as well?
Yeah, he has done it. He's played both sides. I wouldn't say if you asked him, it's his first position that he would or say it's his best position. Certainly, we've seen before the injury, he played there a couple of times in training and looked very good. So it's another string to his bow. It's certainly something we would not rule out.
Okay, Lee?
We've obviously talked in the past about like the need to have a winter break. And sort of Arsenal and Man United led the way on that back in the day. We've now kind of had a winter break in some ways. Do you think it's going to make any big bearing on the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think it will be very interesting to see what happens to the second half of the season and how that break affects certain teams. As you say, it's interesting. A lot of teams have campaigned for that. I think they've campaigned for it more maybe in January than sort of the November break that we had, November-December break that we had. But in concept, it's very similar. So first time it's happened. Let's see what the outcome is.
Do you think in terms of what the games are left, is it almost like a 23-game season as well? I've heard a lot of managers saying it's the season split in half, we're starting again. Have you told that the players in some way that it's all focused on the 23 games and what's been is forgotten now?
Yeah, I'd be amazed if the players need to hear that. I think they know that it's all about the next games we have coming up, and I don't really know what splitting the season into two means. You just try and do your best in every training session leading up to every game. So, you know, a lot of words can be said, but the principles always remain the same in terms of trying to get your team to play well.
Just quickly on Dan Burn, you signed him a lot. People thought he was going to be a centre back. He's actually turned out to be your best left back at the moment, and keeping Matt Targett out of the team. What do you say to those two players? Obviously, well done to Dan Burn, but Matt Targett's now got a big challenge on his hand in 2023.
Well, I think you put it perfectly. I think we've got two outstanding left backs there. You've got Jamal Lewis is also snapping at the heels and performing very well in training. So we've got really good competition in that position. I think Dan has done exceptionally well. I just think he adds so much in terms of his personality and his leadership, and his height's an added bonus in that position as well. So he's been excellent. Matt is an outstanding player in his own right. It'll be good to see that battle. But Dan can play in different positions. That versatility is one of the reasons that we signed him. I think for me, it's about contributing whatever you have, what strengths you have, is contributing that to the back four. And our defensive unit's been excellent this season, and both players have played a big part in that.
Just on Botman, the start of the season, you didn't throw him straight in there. Is that paid dividends now, that he had the opportunity to just take that step back and have a look at what Premier League life's all about?
Yeah, maybe in hindsight, but I think at that moment in time, you never know. I think most players I've ever signed want to get chucked straight in. You sign a player, they don't really want to sit on the sidelines and watch. Bruno was exactly the same. But I do feel sometimes when you come to a new league, understanding the league can really help you and benefit you in terms of you come into the team and you can hit the ground running and perform really well straight away. Whereas sometimes if you come straight in, you can make a mistake and it can knock your confidence. So I think every player is different, and I'll always judge it on the individual. But Sven, since he's come into the team, he's been very good, and we're looking for him to continue that form.